Think we're live. Double check the channel here. I'm not seeing anything. It's mildly alarming. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay, we are up and running. All right, let me get situated. Desktop here. Okay. All right, you guys ready to go? I'm ready to go. All right. What I'm looking for this fall, standout players, standout programs. What we saw this weekend at the AAA Kickoff Classic in Grand Rapids, and we'll have a little bit of film study here with Petey. If you like the sounds of that, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube or follow on hit the follow button on Apple or Spotify as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Just look for Petey's Picks on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and yes, TikTok. So with all that out of the way, let's talk some hockey. So wanted to spend a little bit of time prefacing what I'm looking for this fall. Came out of the gates in episode 1 last week talking about players who stood out, who looked good, potential programs on the rise, that type of thing, and didn't really realize I didn't set a precedent, didn't set the baseline for what we're really looking for or what we're hoping to get out of preseason. I'll call it preseason hockey, fall hockey, the MDHL, MHA. Talked with some UP people over the past week playing in the NAPHL out of Wisconsin. So a lot of hockey going on this fall, and it begs the question, like, what are you looking for, Petey? We're more than 80 days away from the start of the Michigan high school hockey season. What could you possibly be looking for in August? So we'll get into it a little bit here. So I think there's a lot of conclusions you can draw on players that are competing in the MDHL, the MHA, and the NAPHL that I just mentioned. Opinions that can be shaped about what to expect from certain programs come winter time. And as an evaluator, I mean, we're always looking for top prospects, regardless of the time of year. So, I find myself watching Pee Wee games going, wow, that kid really has a motor. Oh, that kid could play for me. It's just kind of ingrained in our DNA. We start watching hockey, we immediately start picking out kids we like. You kind of go through that evaluation process a little bit. So if there's hockey being played, someone's watching, someone's evaluating and taking notes. So let's look back a little bit. We'll look at last year as a good example, right? U of D had a ton of guys between the MDHL and the MHA, standout players in both of those fall programs. They were a perennial top 25 team last season. Clarkston, same thing. Ron Wade, Owen Croston, Trey Damian, who's still with MHA, and others from Clarkston kind of dominated that MHA landscape last season. And what happened? They make a run to a Final Four. That program, I mentioned it last fall, I think is one that's going to be here to stay for a while and become one of those kind of blue bloods in Michigan high school hockey. And the writing was on the wall there if you were paying attention to fall hockey and knowing who some of those players and some of those contributors were in August, September, October. So obviously that success carried into the winter. Bay Reps is another one from last fall, a great example. A ton of guys in the MHA. They go on a Final Four run as well and have a spectacular season. So Byron Center in the MDHL, Cade Pratt, Jackson Froisland, Brady Swanson. There might have even been one or two more guys in the MDHL from that Byron Center team last season. So when you look at the numbers of kids represented in these fall organizations, there's usually a good correlation to regular season success later in the winter. So Even with a program like Northville that was kind of up and coming there with Ryan Ossenmacher entering his now second season with Northville, I believe. Um, had 4 or 5 guys in action last season. They end up going on and having a real strong first year under Coach Ossenmacher. Big Rapids, I remember a few years ago, had a handful of guys at MDHL tryouts, and a couple of them made their way into the mix and into the league. And I want to say that same year they go on a playoff run and win a regional championship. Alpena, Cap City, both Forest Hills programs, Grand Rapids Christian. Time and time again, it happens where these teams will have 3, 4, 5 guys represented in these fall organizations involved in some level, some type of high level fall hockey, and then go on to have in season success later on. So this time of year is a great benchmark. It's a good starting point for where some of these teams could project out down the road. So, no, it's not the end all be all. I know that too. I'm aware of that. Look at East Grand Rapids was a pretty good example of that last year. Brady Ross was really the only one that comes to mind that was doing a lot of the fall stuff, I believe, with MHA last fall. And then EGR goes on to be one of the best teams in the state. They make a state final run again, and it's, well, why? How did they do that if they didn't have guys competing in those fall organizations? Well, typical of a lot of West Side programs, they have programs around the state, the UP included in there too. Multi-sport guys, right? A lot of football players for East Grand Rapids last year that ended up being major contributors too. So that's not totally uncommon either. I get that. So with that influx in multi-sport guys, it is kind of hard to get eyes on them in the fall. So it makes sense. But the old adage about UP teams amongst a lot of us was always, you can't judge a UP team until after the new year because all the football players are still getting their hockey legs underneath them. So I know it's August. I know it seems kind of crazy to talk about what teams are going to be good this winter and all that. But I still think there's a lot of opinions that can be formulated over the next 2 months or so. In addition to that, I mentioned it on last week's podcast. These all-star formats are really the best opportunity to kind of compare and contrast players from different teams. Everyone is kind of stripped of their surroundings and their supporting casts. You see a CC kid on a line with a Romeo kid, or a Stevenson defenseman paired with a kid out of Midland. Chelsea goalie facing shots from Heartland, Byron Center, and so on and so forth. So you really get to see everybody on an even playing field across the board. So standing out and having a big game or a big season in the MDHL's case carries a ton of weight to me, more than, I'll say a 50, 60 point regular season against weak competition later in the year. So also, you're looking for kids to, I'm not looking for them to execute perfect forechecks or flawless systems and structured games. You're looking for who can play fast, who can compete in 50-50 pucks along the wall. You're just looking for kids who can flat out make plays, as opposed to some of those kids who just end up thriving in a structured format under some really efficient, effective coaching in the winter season. So, are these players dictating the play in the fall, or are they a spectator? And let me tell you, there are a lot of guys who produce big numbers in the winter that are total spectators in the fall. And there are guys that completely dominate the game in the fall that end up with 20 or 30 points in the winter. And I think that leads to a lot of the head scratching at the end of the year, where people are be like, well, this guy was all state. He put up all these points. He did all these great things. Why isn't he considered in the Mr. Hockey ranks when such and such had 30 points and he's a dream team? And it goes back to kind of that being that better all-around player, playing fast, making plays at a high speed, that compete level and things like that. That is kind of what separates the separator there between players at this level. And you might not get a window into that November, December, January, February. Where you do get to see that translated is in fall hockey in August, September, October. So let me see if I can kind of pick my spot back up here. I went off on a tangent there and got a little lost in my show sheet. So biggest thing, like if you think you're a top player or you want to be considered a top prospect in Michigan high school hockey, the time to make that statement is right now. It's in the fall. Because it doesn't matter what team you play on. It doesn't matter who your coach is or what system you're running. It doesn't matter how strong or weak your schedule is because you're all on an even playing field, like I said. So, who rises to the top in the next couple weeks, couple months? We're going to find out. And I think that's pretty telling. So yeah, there's my little spiel on fall hockey. And like I said, why I think this time of year is so important when you start looking at players and skill sets and junior potential and prospects and things like that. So, okay, I'm going to get into the Kickoff Classic, which happened over the weekend. I was actually part of the marketing team initially when this event started. I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, something like that. And I remember the tournament directors kind of scratching, clawing, just trying to get 4 teams to show up for this thing and get the tournament off the ground, or showcase, I should say, not a tournament. But and now that it's been a couple of years, it's got good traction. Obviously, Fox Motors being involved, I think, helps a lot. This showcase has really become a good starting point to the AAA, to the hockey season in general, but the AAA hockey season, getting bigger names, bigger programs involved. Competition obviously has gone up. So this event, like I said, went from scratch and clawing to just getting by to now being a really key event in the Midwest, in Michigan especially, to kind of be that launching point for the hockey season. So I'll go through kind of each of the 3 major age groups as far as high school hockey uh, is a factor. Anyways, the 15s, you had Fox Motors, Chicago Fury, Buffalo Sabres Elite, which I think is a bit of a sneaky good AAA program in Western New York there, and then MHA obviously. MHA ended up going 0-4 on the weekend in that group. But ended up losing 2 one-goal games to the Sabres. Sabres, like I mentioned, they were a top 25 AAA team last season among the 14s, now 15s. And I know year over year there's some roster turnover and things like that, but ultimately that the core of that squad was a top 25 team last season. So 0-4, you kind of got to read into the record there a little bit with MHA. And you see, again, not the overall record, but just the fact that they competed and, it wasn't mass blowouts or anything like that, but held their own and contended. Owen Perry was among the leading scorers of that division. Flint Powers kid, I talked about him a little bit on last week's episode. Ended up with 4 goals in 4 games in Grand Rapids. And then Michael Hakala was another one. He had 3 assists over the weekend as well. So that kind of buttons things up there on the 15s. 16s, MHA again. If you look at the record, struggled. If you read between the tea leaves a little bit, you get a clearer picture there. MHA went 0-4 on the weekend in a group with Fox Motors, Bell Tire, Honey Baked, a couple Michigan AAA programs there, Chicago Fury, Sabres Elite again, and then MHA, like I mentioned. So 0-4 on the weekend, one of those being a 5-1 loss to Honey Baked and a 5-3 loss to Bell Tire. MHA actually had a 3-2 lead going into the third period there against Bell Tire. So again, kind of got to read between the lines there on the record. Trenton's Jack Brownlee, Gianluca DeSalvo, and Donovan Durbin, all with 3 points apiece there among the 16s. And talking with Rick Gadwa about the teams over the weekend, it was very much that. The younger groups, I should say, 15s and 16s, competed, worked hard, played hard, but ultimately kind of that, I'll say, a lack of structure and preparation to compete with some of these teams that had been practicing for weeks, months. Some of these rosters for the AAA teams decided back in March and April, have had a longer runway, obviously, to get prepared for such a weekend. So 15s and 16s a little bit new to the process there for MHA, whereas your 18s obviously have been through the process a couple seasons now with MHA and can kind of step right in and compete a little bit better than the 15s and 16s out of the gate. So I'd expect the 15s and 16s to continue to develop as the fall progresses. They've got a couple more tournaments and showcases coming up on that front. So it'll be cool to kind of track that progress and where they're starting at here at the Kickoff Classic. So that pretty much wraps it up for me as far as the 15s and 16s go. I'm going to spend a good amount of time here on the 18s. Pretty big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6, 7 teams. 8 teams. I don't know. You had Fox Motors, Caesars, Bell Tire, so your Michigan AAA representatives, as well as MHA. You had Chicago Fury, Windy City Storm, Pittsburgh Vengeance, and then the Rose City Pats, which is an organization I'm not super familiar with, but I do believe I saw that organization listed amongst NAPHL teams too, which the MDHL will be at in a couple weeks. So this particular age group, like I mentioned, fared considerably better. And I think that kind of goes back to just that maturity, experience, having been through it before. None of these MHA teams had, I'll say, much prep time, maybe a couple practices together. Zero system, zero structure really put in place. It's glorified pickup hockey in a way. We're dumping pucks out and we're just going to go play and skate hard and try and make good things happen. So there might be some brief chalk talk on what type of forecheck you want to run, but trying to do all that stuff on the fly is obviously a challenge. So MHA went 3-1-0 on the weekend here amongst 18s. That was second in the division behind the host team Fox, who was 4-0. Beat Chicago Fury, beat Pittsburgh Vengeance, beat the Rose City Pats that I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Their only loss on the weekend was 5-4 to Windy City. Windy City's 18U team last spring actually was an automatic qualifier. Competed at USA Nationals last spring. So again, a lot of turnover there from one year to the next, understandably, but overall, one of those perennial powerhouses, I'll say, in AAA that competes regularly. So they didn't play any Michigan AAA teams, and I wonder why. Interesting, but nonetheless, that's a topic for another day, I think. Aiden Cook, Drew Lesperance, Charlie Price, Wyatt Emmett, Ian Castamo, some of those top performers amongst 18s. And at the 18U level, even with a fraction of the top kids in the state, MHA on its own is still a very serviceable AAA team, I think is essentially what I took away from this weekend. And I say a fraction of the top kids in the state because there's no MDHL kids, there's no UP kids, no practices, no systems in place, no structure. And this team of high school kids very much competes on the level of AAA hockey in this instance. So same could be said to an extent about your 15s and about your 16s. I think if there was a collective effort amongst high school hockey to field teams at those age levels, the best players from the MDHL, the best players from the MHA and around the state, you'd see an even more competitive bunch at these age levels as well. So the point I'm trying to make here is, if you're debating between AAA and high school, or you look to downplay the competition or ability of high school players, I mean, the proof is in the pudding here, right? Going over the standings and win-loss records and overall game results. Now, you put Granville up against Fox's 18U team. Yeah, not good. I don't like Gabriel Richard's odds against a Bell Tire straight up. But if you take not even the best of the best in high school hockey, just some of the best. You put together a good collective representation of Michigan high school hockey players, and it comps very well to the AAA level. MHA is a solid contingent of top high school players. Aiden Cook, Castamo, Gibson Grendel is another guy I like. Trey Damian on the back end might have been their best defenseman this weekend. But there are some great high school players not in the mix on this MHA team in Grand Rapids as well. So and vice versa for the MDHL in the events and showcases that they will go to. Again, there will be some top level high school hockey guys and some really solid players, but neither would necessarily be high school hockey's best possible foot forward. So that to me would happen with like your Team Michigan type stuff in the spring. And that collective of players in the spring, where you do get the best high school players from the UP, from Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Detroit. Team Michigan plays tune-up games against the likes of Honey Baked and OJG's 18s. I don't know if that's still the case. Like, it's been a couple of years since I've been around or involved in the Team Michigan process, but I know a couple of years back that was part of their kind of training camp, was playing back-to-backs against a Honey Baked squad. So I'm not trying to make this a debate, high school or AAA either. I don't want that to get lost in this conversation. My point is really, we all have our own paths, and our paths are whatever we decide to make them. I think there are some top level high school kids that are every bit as good as some of the players here that you see on AAA teams, and coaches, scouts, maybe even opposing players, parents, and so on continue to kind of sleep on them because they're high school hockey players. And that kind of has a bit of a negative stigma around it in the travel world. And, if you're a player, I say this to, show you that there are some highly competitive avenues you can take and be a part of the MHA at the tournament over the weekend, or the MDHL in Team Michigan, that offer the same type of exposure and top level competition. And if you're a parent like I am now and starting to get into the hockey world, it's one hell of a cheaper alternative. Less travel, less time away from school, that whole thing. So I've gotten to the point with high school and AAA that it's your time, it's your money, it's your experience. You make whatever decision you think is best for you. I just try to consider all of the factors when making those decisions. And like I said, some of those preconceived notions or opinions, not totally based on facts, that's where I like to come in and kind of offer that all-encompassing view. And then from there, you can make your determinations and your decisions. But I think MHA having a good showing at the Kickoff Classic, which they do on a regular basis, I think really illustrates that point as well. So now, more specifically, on a few things I saw this weekend, I got a couple clips I want to go over, players that jumped out to me, and what they did to stand out in my mind. I wanted to provide maybe a little bit of chalk talk in some of the clips that caught my eye. And my hope as a coach is obviously that any of the players listening on Apple or Spotify, or watching on YouTube, watching probably the best option, obviously, because I'm going to screen share here and watch some clips. So apologies for the listening audience. I will do my best to kind of articulate what is happening. But to get the full experience, you're going to want to go on YouTube here. But yeah, the coach in me hopes that you can learn from other players and implement what they do into your game. One of my favorite quotes is, "A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from someone else's mistakes." And it's one of those things. These aren't mistakes by any stretch of the imagination. These are all good plays, good things. But the hope still remains that if you see someone doing something good or productive in hockey that you would then want to emulate it into your game as well. So let me see if I can go dual screen here. How do I want to do this? Probably this way. Okay, I think we're good here. I'm gonna start with, so these clips jumped out to me, but I didn't really take a ton of notes. So we're gonna kind of go over this on the fly in real time. I'll blow this up as big as I can here. That's pretty decent. So this is a shift by Roman Valair. There's a couple key, whoops, I'm going to turn down the audio so you can actually hear me, or try to hear me anyways. I got Roman Valair here from the 18U MHA, and it's going to take me a minute to find him here. Sorry, doing this on the fly. He might not even be on the ice with this. Oh, yeah, he is. Okay, we're good. That was him with the puck. So I got to go back here. Roman Valair down here in the corner, I believe. Puck goes up top. He goes right to the net. You got to love that. This is, let me preface this real quick. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to go back. This is 5-on-4. And I know 5-on-4 hockey isn't the best way to evaluate and assess players, but there are elements of his game that are visible here that doesn't matter whether it's 5-on-5 or a power play opportunity here. It's just ingrained in his game, and I think it stands out and resonates. And what I mean by that is 5-on-4. There's obviously a lot more time and space and an opportunity to make plays. What he does here, I don't think is a correlation of that. I think it's just the way he plays the game, and because of that, he would stand out whether this was 5-on-5 or 5-on-4. So he's in front of the net here. Man, this is tough for me to do here. I got to get back to the screen. I'll go back a little bit. Right here, loose puck, first one to jump on it in the corner, picks it up, turns to the net. I love that. Not enough guys do this coming out of the corner. Make yourself a threat, be a scoring threat, turn and attack the net. Now, quick to jump on a loose puck. Guys don't do enough of that, especially 5-on-4. Take advantage of the man advantage and out-man people on the puck and on loose pucks. A lot of guys, especially on the PP, want to stand around and wait for someone else to get them the puck. This instance, this is where Roman wants it, goes and gets it. Now, like I said, turn and attack the net. Be a threat yourself, but also he's not forcing a square peg into a round hole, right? He's turning, coming out of the corner, making himself a threat. They got to adjust. They got to now defend him. There's nothing there. There's no shot opportunity, so he doesn't force it. Time and time again, you see a lot of guys who, I don't want to call it a selfish play, but shooters are going to shoot, right? And he turns, he attacks the net. He wants to shoot. He's going to let it rip whether it's there or not. That's not the case here with Roman. He doubles back, maintains possession, makes a smart play, goes back up top to his D. That's a great play, 5-on-5, but even better 5-on-4 because you really want to take advantage of that man advantage and controlling, taking possession of the puck like that and not giving it up. I think is huge there. So I really like that. Sets up a nice two-man play up top with, I think that's Brady Damien, by the way, or Trey Damien, excuse me. So a nice little two-man game up top. Trey walks, dishes back to him, and again, Roman is attacking the net here with the puck, making himself a threat. That to me, like, again, you've now seen it twice in the span of 10 seconds on a shift. That's a guy who's constantly looking to attack the net, constantly looking to be a scoring threat. That to me is a character trait that makes you a very dangerous player, especially at the high school level. So, and again, what I like most is he's not forcing it. He's attacking the net. He's making himself a threat, but he's not pulling the trigger haphazardly. He sees two guys closing in on a lane, one trying to block a shot. He doesn't force a shot. He passes to an open guy and sets up a great scoring opportunity. Like, I love that. That's a good hockey IQ. That's a guy who's trying to get himself in position to be a threat with the puck, without the puck. Just all around smart play. And again, I don't care if that's 5-on-5 or 5-on-4. That's a skill that resonates regardless of the situation. So that was one to me. And I realized this would probably be a lot better if I had more of a telestrator and you can see a little bit better. I know my cursor probably isn't the best, but as I'm talking through it and you guys are watching the clip, I'm sure, or I'm hoping anyways, you can make sense of what I'm talking through here. So next clip here, can I make this bigger? How's this going to work? Oh, that's perfect. Next clip here is Ty Kraut on the back end, number 4 here. Hard to miss with that Heartland helmet. Oops, gotta mute this. Let's see here. Here off the face-off. What I loved most, there's a play coming up that I'll tell you is exactly why this jumped out to me in the first place. And it all goes back to his gap control. We're not there yet, but again, he's real solid positioning here. And I might even have to go forward to go back. But I love this here because he's constantly pushing the back end and just in a good defensive position. If you watch him right off the face-off, he's not flying out of the zone the minute the opponent has the puck. He's not bailing. But he's also not recklessly pinching either and trying to make a 50-50 play out of something that's not there. He's just, in football, we say as deep as the deepest. And I think he does a great job of that on this particular shift, and you'll see here. So again, puck goes the other way. He's in good position here. What I loved too was like he's still, even here, he's still pushing the back end. He's not camped out in front of his own net. He's as deep as their deepest wherever he goes in the rink. And then boom, up here, as soon as MHA gets the puck, he backpedals to his own net. He's trying to create as much time and space as he can to, one, make himself an outlet and an option to his teammate, but then have time and space to make a play when the puck ultimately does come to him behind the net. And then not only, so if you watch this one more time, MHA gets the puck. He's very quick to turn, backpedal, create open space. Teammate bumps it to him. And now he's got some real estate to go and make a play behind the net. And ultimately, again, he's not overcomplicating things on the back end. That's what I love about defensemen who just make the simple plays. You don't got to hit home runs every play. It's the 6 to 8 foot passes that will separate you and that will take you a long way. The old expression, if you nickel and dime, you never go broke. Nickel and dime your way up the ice. Make the 6 foot passes, make the 8 foot passes, and you'll never take a loss. So he does that here. Great bump up play to the half wall. They end up getting out of the zone clean. And again, if you notice the spacing here through the neutral zone, the clip kind of cuts out briefly, but up the ice the whole way, pushing the back end. He's engaged. Even when it goes in zone, like again, staying on top of that guy, trying to fly the zone, constantly engaged, constantly moving his feet, aware of the play. And I even love this stuff. I don't know that enough young defensemen do this in the offensive zone, but I love to see you kind of condensing the offensive zone as well. Don't just get hung up on the blue line and just camp out at the blue line because you're a defenseman. Be as deep as the deepest. So if these opposing forwards are going to collapse into the zone, collapse with them. Collapse with them. And he does that. You see Ty Kraut here, probably tops of the circles. That makes him more of an option to be involved in the play. Constantly moving, involved. And again, so this was the play that initially tipped me off on this shift. And then I kind of went back and watched the shift in its entirety. Watch his gap control here. Like he's within a stick length or 2 stick lengths throughout the entire neutral zone. And that puts him in a position where this forward gets this pass, gets this breakout pass. And before the forward can even really handle it, boom, Kraut is there with an active stick and pokes it loose. Boom. That was the play where I was like, oh shit, like he was surprised me just watching the flow of the game. And then Kraut, because of his gap control, because of his active stick, is there to make a play at his blue line and not even allow entry into the zone. And this is something to me that's so important. I talk a lot about gapping up without stepping up. And a lot of times when you talk about gapping up with young defensemen, they think I got to step up and take his head off before he crosses the blue line. And it's like, no, you can continue to take your momentum backwards, just like Kraut does, and have an active stick. And let's say this play continues. Kraut throws this poke check and doesn't get home. His momentum is still going backwards. The forward is still coming down on him. He's still in a good spot, even if he misses with that poke check, to continue and stay in the play. Now, if he tries to step up and now his momentum is going north and the opposing forward is going the other direction, now you got two trains on the track going opposite directions. You don't want that, obviously. So Kraut here, great gap control, active stick, and doesn't even allow entry into the zone. And that's kind of my other big takeaway here, talking about young defensemen and gap control. I want to see more of this, where you're forcing the issue at the blue line and not even letting them gain the zone. As soon as you give up the zone and as soon as they get to the tops of the circles, now they're a scoring threat, and you're trying to then make your presence felt with a poke check or being physical or things like that. This to me is picture perfect from Ty Kraut, and I love this gap control. I love the active stick, and I love that he's still not in a bet. He's not taking a risk. There's no risk involved here. If he misses with that poke check, he's still in great position. So ultimately, that's what jumped out to me initially on this shift, and then I went back and watched it in its entirety, and I was like, this is a good 60 seconds. So, okay, how can I close out of this? There we go. I got one more shift, and then we'll put a bow on the episode for you. I got Kyle Lynch here. This was a guy I liked a lot last season for Clarkston, and he just continues to be a pest, I think, in a great way. Just missed the opening faceoff with this clip. If you give me a second here, I'm sure I can identify him here. Where are we? I think this is him right here. Yeah. Coming back here, breakout, and right off the bat, already making it's right here. This is what I love. Not enough young centers in high school hockey do this. You watch Kyle Lynch come up through the play, right? And now he's in a position where he can get that pass from his winger with a full head of steam. Too many times he comes up through the play. Too many times, if I can pause this, too many times our centers want to be out here trying to get this breakout pass from our wingers, and it just doesn't work. You have to support the puck, support the play, and I think Kyle does a great job of this. Now, being a center, yeah, we like to be coming back harder in the zone initially, but he ultimately ends up in the right spot where he needs to be, supporting the puck. Puck goes to the half wall, and he's there to catch a pass in full stride too, right? So I love this coming out of the defensive zone, and need to see more of it from centers at the high school level. This is just textbook stuff, easy stuff, and that to me, again, there's no systems or structure in place yet for MHA as I'm watching this game. That skill, that ability is something that's just ingrained in Kyle Lynch's game. And that's why it really jumps out to me, really resonates to me, and solidifies him as one of those key players to watch moving forward, because the components of his game like this. So carries a full head of steam into the zone, kind of in a tough spot here, 2-on-3. I don't love us playing hero hockey and trying to beat everybody one-on-one, but he doesn't have any other options here either. So what do you want him to do? And you know what? Puck gets knocked away. The initial rush is negated, but then he's very quick to jump on a loose puck and initiate a 50-50 battle and get in scrums here. Look at this. Just a motor that does not stop. This is something where I think there's way too many kids who this initial threat gets snuffed out. Lost the puck. It's over. No, Kyle Lynch just keeps coming. 1, 2, 3, just keeps coming, forces a turnover. Now, he may not even be the one to get the puck off this turnover. It's his teammate. But then where does Lynch go? Goes right to the net and makes himself a scoring threat. Now, he may not be the one who generates the shot. Who is that? 17. That might be a Lesperance, maybe. It's a Heartland kid. But nonetheless, Lynch is bleeding his way to the net, making himself a threat. And can you imagine if Lesperance bumped this back to him on the weak side for a quick chip in. Like, he's a scoring threat. You got to love it. Puck goes into the corner. And again, Lynch, quick to jump on a loose puck. This is what I mean by keeping your feet moving and being a pest on a forecheck. This is a guy whose motor does not quit. He's constantly going. A lot of guys will sit back and watch Lesperance. Sorry, if it's not Lesperance, that's bad. But we'll watch this Heartland kid struggle in the corner in a 1-on-2. You don't see that here. Lynch is quick to jump in on loose pucks, quick to engage, chasing, good pursuit here. Now, puck turns over at the blue line, and again, quick to jump on a loose puck. Look at this. Defenseman holds it at the blue line. Defenseman pinches, good hold, scrum involved. Who's the first one to jump in? Kyle Lynch. Seeing a pattern here? This is the pattern I saw that resonated so well with me. Now, this kind of sucks. It's a bummer, but he's a little bit out of gas. I would be too. We're going on 50 seconds here, and his motor hasn't stopped once. I would be pretty gassed myself. So I'm going to give him a bit of a pass here for being the last guy up the ice. But ultimately, like, watch what happens here. Puck goes the other way. Could he easily mail this one in and be like, I'm done. Go to the bench. I'm tired. Or half-assed a forecheck here. Like, both of those would be, I think, the first two options off the board for a lot of forwards. But instead, Lynch, and you can almost see it in his body language too, as they're coming out of the ice. Watch his body language here. He's like, shit, nobody else is going to go. I guess I have to go. Like, that's exactly what that looked like to me, as he kind of huffs and is like, well, I'm the closest guy to it, and if I don't do it, no one else is going to. Right here. Oh, man, if I don't go, nobody else is, right? So he takes off again on a forecheck at the end of his shift. And this, I don't know that it was deliberate or intentional, but for coaches out there, for players out there, this is as smart of a line change as you can make here. Now, and this is more for his other two line mates. If he's going to go, the other two have to get off the ice. Then you get two fresh legs. They come back up the ice, and Lynch can then change on the back check. That's about as effective of a line change as you could make in this instance. And you definitely don't see enough of that at the high school level or at the travel level, hockey in general, at the youth levels. You'll either see all three guys go to the bench because they're gassed, or all three guys go on the forecheck because, the puck's in the offensive zone and I want to score, right? You don't see that here. This is probably accidental, but still love the line change here. Lynch goes on the forecheck, applies pressure, holds up the opponent long enough for MHA to make a change and get fresh legs out there. And then, like I said, as the play comes back up the ice, Lynch can get off the ice and get that fifth guy on. So that would be a perfect way of going about it. Now, he's at the end of his shift. He's gassed. And look what he's still able to accomplish here on a forecheck. Forces a turnover, quick change of possession, and the puck almost ends up in the net. Like, this is a guy whose motor just does not quit, even when he's gassed and on his last breath, still out there working his butt off and making plays. I love that. Too many times you'll see a forward just post up right here. Just post up in front of the net. One, I'm tired. I'm gassed. I don't want to get beat. Whatever the thought process is, too many times you'll just see a guy post up and wait in front of the net. And that allows the opponent to get settled, to get square, and then make the play that they want to make. Lynch isn't giving them that kind of time and space. Lynch is forcing them to make the play he wants them to make, which ultimately is a turnover that leads to a grade A scoring chance that should have ended up in the back of the net and just, I'll call it a tough break. But, you give me that look 9 out of 10 times, it's going in a good amount, right? So great save by the goalie here, but an even better play, I think, made by Lynch to just force the issue. And this is what I mean as an F1 on a forecheck, to dictate the pace, dictate the play, make them go where you want them to go. Don't sit back and stick wave. Don't sit back and watch and, play like you're playing a 2-3 zone in basketball and you're just going to put your hands up and defend space. Like, no, get in the guy's grill, get in his face, force him to make a play. And maybe maybe Lynch flushes this guy out and the defenseman makes the play he should make, which is just a quick bump to his winger here, and then they're out of the zone with a ton of ice. Maybe that happens, but again, at least Lynch is forcing the play, forcing something to happen. And by doing so, something great happens. A great scoring chance, a great opportunity there. So that is that is it for me in a nutshell, anyways, as far as the film study goes. Let me come back to the home screen here. Where am I at here? I think we're good. We're good. Okay, we're back. Okay, so like I said, that's a bit of what I'm looking for this fall. Some of the things that jump out to me from a player's perspective, from a coach's perspective, and things you can do to kind of stand out and separate yourself at tryouts, at showcases, at games, like regardless of what systems you're playing or what teams you're playing, whatever. Like what we just watched here are some of the just intangibles, basically, and things like that. So, whoops, I just went full screen. Didn't mean to do that. There we go. All right. So maybe that reinforces some of the messaging you've been getting from your coaches and some of the tangible examples of what some other players are doing in their games, and you can emulate it in your own. And maybe sheds a bit of a light on for parents too on what we're looking for as coaches to get out of our players when we say keeping your feet moving. That's a very broad terminology that we use a lot without any like tangible examples of how to explain it. So hopefully some of that stuff kind of resonates a little bit. So if you like that segment, let me know. Leave a comment on the YouTube video. You can DM me on any of my social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, what else? Threads. That's out there too. So I'd be more than happy to pull more clips and do stuff like this on a regular basis. And if you have some clips that you want me to take a look at, happy to do that as well. So like I said, maybe we can kind of work this into the podcast rotation here and hopefully provide some more context into the game. So Labor Day weekend this weekend. Enjoy the holiday. I don't think there's much hockey going on this weekend, so it'll be a nice little mental break for everybody. Back to school too for just about everybody at this point, I think. So yeah, until next time, skate hard, have fun. I'll see you at the rink soon.